Hopefully it comes recording. All right, so we got Blair here. We are talking first about handling red days, and then he's gonna have a few questions, and we're gonna try to answer them here. So hopefully, you guys, there's stuff to learn. The first question, and I was talking with Blair about it, is handling the red days, and either way you put it, red days suck. Um, and I know Blair has talked about how many times he's thrown stuff across the room. Do you want to just tell us a little bit about your experience with red days?
Sure. I mean, the video I did yesterday, I was red, or no, I was green yesterday, but I went nuts, like, because I got caught in a flush, and then or it wasn't a flush, but it was like a big, oh, it was a drop, and I got a bad fill, and I threw my mouse on the ground, and cursed profusely, and felt and then what that did was it actually entered me back into the trade when I threw my mouse on the ground. And I didn't
Oh, the
even
universe
and I didn't even
give you a little
realize it.
karma.
Yeah. And so anyway, red days are, it depends, it depends, because for a while, I'm really trying to use this, and I'm failing at this right now, unfortunately, but I'm trying to use this idea of like, I'm not going to judge my red days based on my P&L, but if I follow my rules. And um, that is something that I really want to work on more. Um, and I still haven't, and I haven't done this too. I was talking with Heaven with the D about this a couple weeks ago, and we were just kind of saying like, yeah, like I was just like, I need to come up with like a red day routine where I have like a very detailed like set of rules or whatever, or just like a process to go through when I go red. Um, Whether that's like, and I haven't not done this yet, but I need to do this. So I'm going to be doing this. I'm thinking I'm going to do this when I go on this retreat for the next 10 days coming up here. But anyway, um, yeah, like, you know, I just thoughts off the top of my head about that could be like, what kind of self-talk do I have? Um, do I just berate myself endlessly, and then comparing to other people, which I do all of these things all the time, and it sucks. Now, on one hand, it also depends on the kind of person you are, because for me, when I get super upset, it protects me actually from losing a lot of money. I was talking to Mike about this too, by the way, recently, and he was saying, yeah, he said, yeah, for me, it protects me from losing money because I get so angry and so disgusted with myself, and whether it's my own trading, or I just had bad luck, or I got a bad fill and it was Schwab's fault or the broker's fault or whatever. I get so angry and I'm in such a frenzy that I just can't even trade anymore. But the problem with that for me, though, is that then it's really bad emotionally. Like, I'm screaming, I'm punching. I mean, I have a hole in my wall I had to patch the other
Are
day.
you serious?
Dead serious. It
Rick.
sucks. Yeah. So anyway, or you could be, I talked to Mike, and he has this opposite thing where he's
Right.
like, if he's red on the day, then he says, oh, like, I can do this, like I can get out of it. It's like this kind of like positive mindset of like, it's fine, like I can get out of it, like I'm good. And then he just keeps trading, and then in many cases you just end up losing a bunch of money.
You just dig a
So
huge hole.
exactly. So it's like, while his emotional state is more positive and he doesn't have to go through the torture that I put myself through, which is really not good. I mean, that's not good either. But he ends up losing a bunch of money. So uh, you
Yeah,
know,
I think what you got going on is a lot better than what other people got going on, which is they get angry and they take that anger out on the market, and then instead
yeah.
of punching the wall, they're punching the buy button, And
Yeah.
like we said, like, if you're already red, if you're already struggling, and if you're not, if you're almost just guessing the entries, and you're punching a bunch of shares in revenge trading, that's how spin out of control, which is what Mike did just the other day again, where he gets into the point where he says, screw this or F this,
Hmm.
and he did say that, where he's very optimistic. And
Right.
in that sense, he's not, like, the fear is what's protecting you, the anger is what's protecting you.
Hmm.
In the case of Mike and other traders, the fear and the anger is what's um, making them have these huge losses,
Yeah.
where the key long term is to have your losses be as tight as possible. Like, losing money is fine. And I know BZ's in a drawdown. I know you're in a drawdown, but I looked at both your guys' chart, BZ and you, and I looked and I'm like, it still looks really good. Yes, it's a pullback. Yes, it's going sideways. Yes, there's a lot of red days,
Hmm.
but like, you're still very much overall in the green, and
Right.
and surviving. I'm just telling people, like, hold on, be you may not be making a lot of money right now. You may be losing money, but find a way to be happy. um and that usually starts with being disciplined, following your rules, staying size down while the market's kind of, like today, very choppy. And then, show up every day, staying consistent, staying conservative, and then eventually, in my experience, eventually the market gets better, and next thing you know, you're off making new highs. Versus a lot of traders, they hit these slow periods, and they like Mike, they just lose so much money, and that is not going to work. um
Right.
but I think for handling the red days, for me, like, I'm upset on my red days a lot. And the only way for me to even be remotely okay with the red days is if I trade well, if I'm actually
Hmm.
executing good patterns, I'm actually watching my share size, I'm following max loss, right? The red days that really get under my skin are the ones where it's like, I knew it was stupid.
Yeah.
I knew that revenge trade was like a slight chance it was going to work, but if it didn't, I knew I was going to be destroyed, like
Hmm.
5 times max loss. And it's like, those that pain lasts a lot longer. What I've noticed with red days for myself is, if I keep it within max loss, if I can really say, okay, I traded the best I could, but I finished red, markets, choppy or whatever. Usually after about an hour or two, I really start to calm down. But like, I've noticed the first 60 minutes after a red day or after a frustrating day, maybe I gave back half profits and I finished half. That is equally as frustrating to me. Um,
Yeah.
but almost like an acceptance that, you're bound to deal with frustration every day you trade. Like, even today I traded, I made money, but there was frustration. For example, the stock VS, like, I lost $1,200 on it. And what I had to do, the first step, stop and unplug. I had to stop trading that ticker. It was ripping to the moon. And I was just like, it's going straight up. But I'm like, the way the spreads are moving, and the way I'm getting filled, it's just, I'm not connecting. I have to just stop. And so even though I'm down $1,200 on that ticker, I'm happy, because what I didn't do was get into this mode of, oh, I can make it back. Oh, I'm gonna go
Hmm.
20,000 shares on a W false breakdown pattern. Um, because on another day, I very well could have lost, 3 4 grand on that ticker.
Hmm.
Um, so that was kind of my first thing. Like, what's the how to handle my first day, my red days. The first step is usually stop. As quick as you realize, it's like, okay, I'm not connecting. I'm getting angry. This is something
Right.
that I know you don't struggle with as much as,
No.
say, like Mike.
Hmm. Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's tough too. And it's so hard. And even today, I mean, I made $9. I've just been in a real, this last month has been really hard for me. I'm in a drawdown about $1,000, and everyone everyone knows this. I've said it like 8 million times. Uh, and it's not that bad. And actually, well, I don't need to share the screen. It's like, my P&L goes. It's like there's like a little dip. But yeah, it's tough because you're seeing, and then it's like you're seeing other people making really good money still, and there could be all these other, and this is the other thing, there could be all these other factors in your life that are going on that you're bringing into the market too, which either that might cause you to overtrade or keep trading past max loss because you're angry about something else that you might not even be aware of. Or in my case, it's this fear, loss of confidence thing going on where, you know, I haven't even had $100 day in the last 3 weeks. And that's like really, and I was like regularly making $200 to $400 pretty much, like every day almost the last 4 months. And now, now it's like I can't even make $100, or I'm giving back profit like I did today. So the slow markets are tough, and when you start getting having more of these bigger red days or hitting max loss a lot, and then not having any green days or very small green days, or break even, it just really can put you in this confused, frustrated mental state. And then when you put that on top of seeing people like Farmer, and I did this today. In my recording, I was like, I get mad at Farmer. I get mad. I'm like, I don't want to look at Farmer and go to his stream and see that he's up, 7 grand, and I'm over here like struggling to make like $20. It's just like the comparison thing is real, and you got to do whatever you can to stop that, or take time off, like just take time off. That's what I'm about to do. I'm about to go for 10 days, no trading, um at all. So
Yeah, I think that hopefully the 10 days you come back refreshed, and then hopefully some of this baggage. I think you have a
yeah,
lot on your plate, and I've dealt with that too.
totally.
So you're definitely not alone in like comparing yourself to other traders and getting angry that he's up this amount. And in my experience, that anger just it's not helpful at all, and it's hard to. And then on top of that, you're also like, okay, you're wanting to get this to work because it's like you want to quit your job, or you have bills to pay, so you got that pressure, and you got this comparing pressure. And then not to mention, I mean, the market was just not good. I mean, it's not
Yeah,
like out of the blue you just started sucking and everybody was doing well. Through September
right.
I saw even experienced traders with a lot of profits behind their belt, and they limped through September, and then
Mhm.
October, we had a little bit more heat, but it was still pretty shaky and weak and slow, until, yesterday out of the blue, we get a huge parabolic rip. And then today, following that, very choppy action from and that's common with like having one huge day on Monday, and then Tuesday the next day is usually a lot of FOMO going on, and you get these big rips up, and big drops, to where I suspected a lot of people would be red, and that's why I was like, guys, you got to get down on your shares. You got to lower your share size, lower your max loss. The market's not doing well. You're in a drawdown. Tighten up that max loss. Show up there, and get trading, and hopefully, and in my experience, eventually the market's going to stabilize. You're going to get back your confidence, and pretty soon you're going to be back making the $200-300 a day that you were. But we're trying to get your confidence back, and part of that is stopping the bleeding. And that sucks because you're stopping the bleeding, but you're also stopping yourself from having huge big green days potentially, because you're lowering your share size. But
Right,
in
right.
this scenario, it's like, hey, I went through a lot of drawdowns, even where it took me over a month to climb out of it. So, like
Really?
looking at you, looking at BZ, I'm like, yes, this is normal. Yes, it's frustrating, but don't do what Mike did. Don't do what a lot of others do, which is allow that frustration to turn into basically Hail Mary trading, where it's like they're
Hmm.
trying to force money out of the market. And next thing you know, their drawdown is now a straight dropout. And
Right.
that's when it's like it's fine if you're going sideways and slowly bleeding, like that's perfect. It's those sharp drops down, and then next thing you know, you're on that negative thought spiral. And that
Hmm.
that can take some
Yeah.
time to work itself out of your trading. It's one of those things where it's like it could take 2-3 weeks before you finally come back with your confidence, maybe a couple big green days, surprise big green days. Next thing you're cruising. And that could be November, December, and then January, February, March. You could see, and what I speculate is, the next leg up, a big squeeze up, and then we'll look back at this slow patch. Um, and it'll just be a memory and hopefully a lot of good lessons learned because going through slow periods in the market, it's inevitable. It just kind of sucks it happened right now, right when you, right when I mean you took off, and
Right.
we see that in your P&L and BZ took off, but the
Yeah.
market just dropped out. The market
Yeah.
dropped out, and I know you guys are frustrated, but I spoke to BZ
Hmm.
today, and he's like, "Is this normal?" I look at his chart, and it's a straight up line,
Hmm.
$4,000 over the course of a couple months, straight up, like literally parabolic straight up. And then I just see, the last few weeks, it's just a slow bleed. And I'm
Hmm.
like, dude, yeah, that is perfect. Right. I'm just like, hang in there, get in there, take some trades. And one of these days it's going to connect. And I'm telling you, you're going to be back trading like you were. Just don't have a huge red day. Um,
Yeah.
So, I'm trying to find this is why I made this line. Find at least one positive,
Yeah.
especially on your red days. It can help a little bit. There's some days I've really just blown up and it's a huge snowball day and there's there's not really any positive except for the fact that I actually finally did shut down. But I've had snowball days where I lose 8, 9, $10,000 and I mean, there's no secret sauce to be like, oh, that didn't hurt me. For the people that don't get hurt by their losses and don't have fear, those kind of people, kind of like Mike, uh, uh, those kind of people tend to blow up their accounts or just lose so much money they're out of the game. Um, so I think in that way, I think you're killing it on that front. Now the punching the hole in the wall, Blair. I mean, I don't know. I mean,
I
that might be a
know. No,
beyond
it's
my help,
uh,
but
no. Like I
that's
have
better than
serious.
revenge trading.
What's that? Oh yeah. Right. Well, maybe. Depends how you look at it. I don't know, but yeah, I mean, a lot of stuff I wanted, like looking at what you wrote here. Um, the thing, well, I guess I'll just start with this. I was also talking again. I was talking with Heaven with a D about this, but he was telling me, you know, he basically said, "Oh, I hate seeing you getting so down on yourself. You have the max loss stuff completely under control for the most part, it seems, which is like that's arguably the hardest thing." And so he said, what he said was interesting though. He said, you've turned the corner of becoming profitable. It's very small profit. I mean, I'm up around $7,000, but that's not the only corner. There's more. There's a bunch of other corners left to go. And I do think that it's a lot harder when, well, first of all, I've never gone through that experience. Number one, I've never gone through that kind of experience before, where I've become profitable and now I'm in this kind of drawdown. It's not that bad, but it's makes me uncomfortable and it has me
Right.
questioning, like, am I doing? Do I even know how to trade anymore? Like, because I was profitable and I made all this money in the last 4 months, for me, which it was has been a good sign of progress. And now it's like I can't even make $100. It's like I'm going nuts. Like what is happening? I don't know what's going on, and so it's tricky because that thing that Heaven said again with you're gonna have many corners. It's like, and also what you said, Farmer, about like, you know, just because you become profitable doesn't mean that, or even if you're in a big drawdown, like I was in an 8K drawdown and then I started, I turned the corner then and I was digging out of that huge drawdown overall. There was still a bunch of setbacks that happened, and but I think that it is especially difficult with people that they don't have, hundreds of thousands of dollars of cushion. That to me just seems like a huge confidence booster, not only from like a financial standpoint of like I can really trade freely with big risk, but also you have that experience, um, and you've been through these periods already. So like I said, like you can't compare, and I'm really bad. I compare myself constantly. It's terrible. I really, it's something that I really struggle with. And I feel bad just like in the community. A lot of times I'm constantly complaining and being negative, and it's not good, but I'm trying my best to be better about it. But it's tough. I mean, trading is, this is what trading is, right? I mean, and I think that, sorry, last thing I'll say is that like people that, well, you're going to have to learn multiple lessons. Even if you think you have good progress happening, you might have periods of like you feel like you've lost your touch, or you're confused and you get really down. I mean, that's trading.
Yeah, that and like I said, yeah, like when I my first year of profitable day trading, even after I made hundreds of thousands, I still went through I guess I went through drawdowns that literally took me 4 weeks before I got back to where I was 4 weeks prior.
Mm-hmm.
And through that, I learned, like, hey, one, you got to follow your max loss, because that was kind of the big reason why I fell into that. And two, if the market's dead and you're in a drawdown, like, the best you can do is just stop the bleeding. The best you can do is just go sideways. And for you, you're down on yourself, and it's like you're doing really well because you're you're surviving. You're going sideways, you're slowly bleeding, and let's just say this, it could be way worse.
Yeah.
Through a slow period like this, you could have lost everything you made. And then that's when we have a problem. That's when it's like, okay, yeah, that you went up green 7,000 and then you went straight back down. And you haven't. And so in some ways, from my perspective, you're still successful, you're still doing great, right? And then a year or two from now, when we get tested again through a slow period, you're going to be better. And it's like
Right.
that, it's like practicing that instrument. That's what I always equated to trading, was learning an instrument where you practice 15 minutes a day for a year. you know each day you practice 15 minutes, you don't think you're learning. Maybe um you get sloppy on your plane for a little bit, but
Mm-hmm.
overall you're still grinding in the right direction and slowly learning. And so,
Mm-hmm.
like, I would
Yeah.
say,
Oh, go ahead.
be positive, because from my perspective, you're doing great. BZ's doing fine. And then when things clean up a little bit, and maybe, we get a couple days where the money comes in easy, and then, you get that $200 $300 green day, you get that confidence back. Because there's also
Right.
that aspect where it's like, yeah, the market's tough, but what I also notice, and like you said, I think there's some baggage that's also holding you back even more, which is the comparing. It's that frustration,
Mm-hmm.
and that's, you haven't let it get out of control. But this is the period now where you
Yeah.
learn how to how to stay alive. This is
Right.
the how to stay alive, right? And and then when you thrive again, you're gonna go to new highs. Maybe that's through the December, January, February, March season. Maybe the market's really great through that period. You
Hmm.
make all new highs, and then maybe June, July will be tested again on a slow market like this. And then that's when I'll be saying I'll probably take a big loss, and I'll be like, oh no, like it seems like market's slowing down. And then next thing, the gap scanner's dead, and
Right.
in that case, you'll be quicker to recognize, oh, this is the down cycle, which always comes. There
Right.
always will be that down cycle that comes, and you'll be quicker to just not necessarily figure out the pattern or figure, because sometimes it's just like you can't. The stocks just are going straight down. There's no pattern
Right.
to figure out. The fills are terrible. It's not that you forgot how to trade. It's just we're in a slow period. And in my experience, I spent a lot of time where I had to adjust my max loss from $1,000. I adjusted all the way down to 500 because I'm
Hmm.
like, look, market's dead. I'm just going to try a little bit, and and whatever the case is, I do not want to have massive losses.
Yeah.
And so, that's kind of why I have this lesson, this slide here. Take the lesson. How do you feel good about your red days or even this slow period that you're going through? And what I've been telling people, I'm like, this is a great lesson to learn. It sucks to learn, but this is going through this period is going to prepare you for your career of, when you're, really doing this full time.
Yeah,
Um,
I mean and that's something to like really keep in mind. I think, but like this, yeah, well, you have right here taking the lesson. That's like a really good way to. That's a good mindset. I mean, I talked to Anomaly too about this a couple weeks ago, just in typing to him in Discord, and he had such a fantastic like outlook about trading, where he was basically just saying like you need to always just endlessly be in like this learning mindset no matter what. Like don't
right.
worry about beating yourself up if
Mhm.
you're in, that does nothing. I mean, of course, this is way easier said than done, especially depending on the person, depending on your personality, all that stuff. I mean, it can be very difficult, like it is for me. But that having the learning mindset always is like a superpower, in my opinion, because if you have that kind of positivity, and that mindset, it'll get you through these periods. And it also depends on like where you are, because you know some some person might be, or one trader might be in a deep drawdown. They've never been profitable. They've only lost money, and you know during that period, in some ways, it might be easier almost to be in that learning mindset a little bit. Um, but then it might be someone like me who's like more newly profitable and has dug out of a big hole finally, and then you're trying to, but then you're in a drawdown, so then you're like, it's confusing. So, and you're like, oh no, like you might actually feel worse because and you might not have the learning mindset so easily anymore because you've become profitable, you're doing well, you've had consistency, like all of those things have happened. And then when you go into these difficult periods, it can be kind of easy to take for granted that you have actually made a lot of progress and to keep that kind of taking the lesson mindset. And so, like I said before, yeah, like you're always going to be learning new corners, having to take another corner. You're always, and so sometimes it's just hard to lose sight of that. And I feel like the more you can try your best to have that mindset is will only benefit you going forward. I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, I think just to conclude this video is just like, just hang in there, Blair.
Yeah.
Just hang in there, and go sideways if you have to. Because we you've proven that you know how to trade. We're just in a little bit of a funk now, and I think if you just hang in there, stay disciplined, don't do the big, snowball big days, and I do think you'll pull out of this, and that's the whole thing with trading is you get knocked down, you get right back up again, And this low point that you're at, again, coming back to your chart, this low point you're at is still and forget the dollar amount, just look at the chart. I mean,
Yeah.
you took off, and now you have basically going sideways, like a slight bleed, and that's normal. And I think just keep going, keep wanting to learn, stay patient. And so, the seasons in the market, they can last a while. We could have 4 weeks of just not good, 4, 5, 6 weeks of not good. And after every slow period, in my experience, always comes a really hot period. And that might be December, January, February, where next thing you know, you're up, way beyond what you thought,
Hmm.
you could make. But
Yeah, I
anyway,
mean, like you have that experience. Like that's the thing is like it's so funny. I feel like I've been through slow periods before in the past, and but it always feel like right now, like this one that we've been in, it just felt like it was like this endless, like it's
yeah.
never gonna end, and like
And
yeah,
yeah,
and you have that experience now to where, and now I will hopefully have that too. I mean, I've already made improvements because I've sized way down. I was a little late to the party, I think, sizing down. I think I took a little bit too many, a couple of too many max loss days in a row.
right. Yeah, I was thinking the same thing as
But
I saw a few days where I was like, ah, shoot, like those were days that would have been nice to be small red. But that's the whole thing, is like next time we do go through this cycle, which might not be till July or August of next
mhm,
year, you're going to have the experience to say, hey, I recognize the slowdown. I'm going to get ahead of it, because it's like a statistical, it's a fact. You're going to have big pushes up in your P&L, and eventually the market's going to change. Something's going to happen, and you're going to have to just hold tight, and the market's going to try really hard to take its money back. And that's
mhm,
why I'm like, the market has taken some money back, as it was destined to happen. This was destined to happen.
right.
And although yes, you could have weathered the storm a little bit better overall, you know, going sideways, small red days, is kept you definitely in the fight. And
Yeah.
so that's kind of the lesson. Hopefully, we'll touch back December, January, and I'm betting on you, not to put pressure, but if you just stick to the formula, stick with staying confident, and we should see you pull out of this. But I do you have anything to add? Because I think we're going to cut this section here, and then we'll
Yeah.
continue to talk after. But
Well, yeah, yeah, sure. Well, actually, I wanted to ask you one other thing real quick about this. Um, and so, like, well, the question I have is, what would be some good indicators of like a specific, again, and everyone's different, but what would be some good kind of early indications that we are entering a slow period? Like, is it kind of like, I mean, I get like maybe it's like you kind of see that maybe you have like one max loss day or
right.
something, or maybe two max loss days in a row or something close to that. And you can tell that the market is kind of not as strong. Like, it's just stuff like that. Just so, like, kind
Yeah.
of like, so you can identify quicker and then make the changes necessary of probably sizing down during that period, at
Okay,
least.
yeah, that's a good question, and you kind of answered a little bit of what I was going to say, but yeah, taking a really big loss for me, it was that $6,000 loss. I don't know if you remember, but ever since
Yeah.
that day, like once I took that big loss, that's when we really entered into what I thought was a really slow market. And that's a common thing where it's like we're doing really well, and then all of a sudden one day you get absolutely smoked. And for me, that's my first indication of,
Mm-hmm.
okay, we just were in a really, really hot period. I just took a massive loss. And through my experience, it's this constant ebb and flow where it's like you have one really good month and then the next month is a struggle. And so some of it's intuition. There's no formula, but for me, it's like, okay, I just took a big loss. Okay, let's see what tomorrow is, right? And if tomorrow shows up and the gap scanner is weak, meaning we don't have a lot of good options, then it's
Mm-hmm.
like, okay, that's 2 days. And then next thing you know, you go through a week, and it's like you really start to see that gap scanner thin out. You're not getting a whole lot of options. And sometimes you really don't know the slow market is coming.
Right.
And so it's almost like as if I'm always in a slow market mode, me personally. And that's why, the way I trade is
Hmm.
I consider it very conservative and very risk averse. Like the whole idea of getting in and out quickly, the whole idea of not doing the halt resumption trades as much anymore, if at all. It's all about being careful, being, showing up, trying to get that $1 a day. And so, for me, the last time when I recognized the slow period is when I took that massive loss
Mm-hmm.
because so, there's slow markets when the market's bad, and there's also personal slow periods. And
Mm.
there's kind of like two ebbs and flows where it's like,
Mm-hmm.
for me, when I took that massive loss, my personal confidence, my personal strength also went to zero.
Right.
And then also on top of that, we were seeing a lot more stocks just go straight down. And then I was like, well, I just came out of two really strong months. Um, and and I was like, we're due for that slow period. Like the slow period we just went through,
Mm-hmm.
it's gonna come. Now, what's nice is now that we went through that slow period, after a couple, 2, 3 weeks of the slow period, I was telling people, I'm like, we're due for the market to heat up. I said, hang on, guys. This week's garbage, size down, size down. A lot of
Mm-hmm.
people did size down. Some people were slow to size down. And then, sure enough, this week, out of the blue, we get that parabolic squeeze yesterday. Today, we did have volatility. It just was choppy and shaky. Now, what I'm saying now is now I'm predicting that we're coming into a hot market.
Mm-hmm.
Like this is just the engines revving to where it feels like we just went through that pullback. And in
Mm-hmm.
my experience now with the parabolic move yesterday, I'm thinking we might be on moving into a hot period that could last 2 months. And so I
Mm-hmm.
guess it's kind of those big outliers, that big loss, and then the really weak gap scanners and other people struggling and I'm struggling. I'm like, okay, we could be in 2 to 3 weeks of slow.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And then now that we were in the really slow period for 2 to 3 weeks to even 4 weeks, even before we had the parabolic stock, I was already thinking, okay, keep things tight now, but be on the lookout for when things are going to shift. Because just when you got to be able to switch gears quickly in
Right.
some ways to where it's like when it's dead, it's dead, but then when it's hot, next thing you know, momentum's flowing again. But to answer your question, that's tough. And even I struggle with it
Yeah.
because um there's some things where it's like I took a couple red days where it's like the gap scanner was dead. I took a big loss the week prior. The gap scanner was dead. Stocks are selling off, and I'm sitting here trying to force money out of the market where it's like it's just not the time to do it.
Right.
Um,
Yeah, and it also comes down to your experience, probably. Like, I don't know. I mean, maybe a good rule of thumb is like, is the gap percentage maybe has to be like 70% or higher or something to
yeah, that's certainly um
something like that.
no, yeah, that is part of it. Like the minute I look at the gap scanner, you can kind of tell like, okay, is this going to be a good day or a bad day? Right? Is
Mm-hmm.
it is it all stocks that are below $1? Because if it is, then I'm probably not going to do well because I'm not good at those stocks. So if I
Yeah.
do trade them, I'm just going to have to do so with the expectation that I'm probably not going to do well. So I'm going to be with smaller size. And again, I've been doing this for 4 or 5 years, so it's like I got all this experience and knowledge of which it's like you kind of have to do it to you have to see it to believe it. You have to go through it to understand it. We can talk about how to play the drums. We can talk about how over time you're going to get good at the flute, but
Right.
you actually have to practice. And so to really zoom out, this is like learning to play an instrument. You got really good at the trumpet. Well, guess what? Now we're going to an even harder lesson. Now you got to navigate through a market 2 to 3 weeks where the gap scanner's weak, stocks are going straight down. There just really isn't opportunity. You
Mm-hmm.
have to go through that, learn that, and then to get to that next corner, to turn the corner to the next corner. And it's like you're constantly turning corners.
Right.
And it's like, um,
Yeah, and the weird thing too is like a corner could mean not making money and, sizing down and actually losing money, but you're losing maybe a small amount. Like that's
right.
a corner too, but it doesn't feel that
It
way.
doesn't feel
But
good. Like what you're
right.
doing, Blair, doesn't feel good, but you're doing good. Like, and BZ sent me his thing, and I looked at it, and it's just a slow. He has a huge parabolic move up. Not even talking about the dollar amount, but just a straight parabolic move up,
Hmm.
and super consistent. And then at the top, the last 2 to 3 weeks during a slow market, which I've been
Hmm.
calling out for weeks now, and he's just slowly bleeding. I'm like, yes, that's normal. This is fine. Like, and I
Yeah,
know
he's
it
done a great
sucks.
job of keeping things tight. Like
Yeah.
super tight.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he is really consistent. Now, Mike,
Like,
on the other hand, and I can pick on him because I talk to him a lot, but that's a situation where it's like, no, you're still not getting it. Like I get that you feel like you're guessing, and I know that you're frustrated that the market is just it feels like you don't know how to trade anymore. And I'm like, that's just come to accept that basically, and just go really low share size. If it really feels like you're guessing, then why are you using such high share size? We should be having like 30, 40, $50 red days instead of these $2,000 blow up days.
yeah.
And that's the that's why it's like I'm not really going into the patterns a whole lot, because it's like you know the patterns. They're just the patterns just haven't been working. And now we out of the blue we had a parabolic squeeze yesterday. Those are hard to trade. And then today,
Yeah.
and I told people, I said today is probably going to be very shaky and choppy. So expect to not do well, aka be
Yeah.
light on your toes, be light share size. Like that's the secret. That's the secret. And then while you're trading with small size, practice on those stocks that you're shaky, that you're not, you don't trade well. Go in for those big dips, maybe with
Hmm.
5 shares. Go in for that pattern,
Right.
and try and be always constantly wanting to learn, not constantly wanting to be rich, constantly wanting to be better than farmer. Just
Hmm.
you know, I guess that's it. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't
I
know if
know. I
that
mean,
made any sense, but
it's tough though. I mean, it's very tough, I think, in a lot of ways, but that is the right thing to do. I mean, I could definitely do that. I could definitely do a better job of like, say I'm done trading for the day, I can just go down to like one share or something and just practice. Um, like which I don't do enough of, I guess, because then sometimes I get worried that like it might send me into trading again with bigger size or something. But you got to be mindful of that. But if you really just say, hey, I'm just going to take one share or two share, whatever it is, or 5 shares, it's a tiny
right.
share amount, and then just practice the rest of the day with a very, it's like a
Hmm.
it doesn't matter the price, what you might gain or lose is kind of irrelevant because it's so
Right.
small.
And
That's
these,
fun.
especially in these slow markets, and kind of
Yeah.
my advice, and we are kind of coming out of the slow market. These slow markets that we went through, kind of how um you can still make money through them is really closing down the hatches on like what you accept, as far as what pattern you're willing to trade, what stocks you're willing to trade. I seen so many people in the slow period, they quick jump on any stock that's running, it wasn't even a gap or just came out of nowhere. And how I get through these slow periods is putting a bigger focus on waiting for maybe a 5 minute pattern to form, and then maybe hitting it really big on one trade. And sometimes in these slow markets, it's really just 1 to 2 trades that are carrying me through with profit, because there's not a whole lot of time to take 500 orders on these quick in and out scalps. Plus,
Right.
the spreads are probably, there's less volume, so they're bigger spreads, more erratic, and so you're just getting chopped up trying to just get in and out. When these slow markets are much more, okay, what's the 5 minute look like? Okay, this is probably the only pattern that is going to at least work a little bit before this thing sells off the rest of the day. um
Hmm.
and so that's something to think about, where you're spending more time looking for the best of the best. and
Yeah, and
leaving
like even
everything
on
else.
patterns like W's, like this is something I think about a lot, and it's a complaint that I've made a lot, which is like, yeah, well, farmer, it's like he takes 18,000 shares and he makes meaningful money that can like he can support himself with, but like if you don't do that, then what do you do? And I think that that's a fair complaint to have. But after thinking about it more, I kind of thought, okay, but how many like what would be a reasonable share size for someone like me or someone who's not as experienced, nor do they have the big cushion that farmer has. And it might be like, maybe I could try to work up to eventually like taking those W's with 5,000 shares, or 10,000 shares. If it's, let's say 5,000, if I get a 5 cent move, that's 250, or if it's a 10 cent, that's $500, like, which to me is great. Like, so, I was kind of thinking about that more and saying like, well, maybe I don't need to take 20,000 shares, but maybe, yeah, you might have to take a little bit bigger share size on the W's like that in when the market sucks and you can't do the dip within the rips as easily, or the fills suck. So you have to trade way below VWAP. Yeah, if you're going to do W's and stuff like that, then maybe just I'm telling this to myself, don't beat yourself up so much about, oh, I can't take this with 20,000 shares. I like, what's the
Right.
point? Like, I need to take it with, what's the point of only doing 1,000 shares? And it's like, eventually, if you can work that number up maybe to like even 3,000 to 5,000 shares would probably be, that's a good start, as far as sizing goes, with making more meaningful kind of money that you could actually, maybe have a sort like a salary with, or you know what I mean, like that.
Right. Yeah. And when I first started, I wasn't taking 20,000,
Yeah.
shares. And when I started, I didn't have 100. I had, 26, 27,000. That's it. And so,
Right.
and yet still through the process of showing up every day, and going through what you're going through, small size, like that's how I got to the point now where I can do the 20,000 on a stock below VWAP on a dip, and I can make 3 cents per share on 20,000 shares. That's $600, but that's such a tiny trade, you
Mm-hmm.
know. But then again, it does come back to that, like you don't need to $20,000 to make this. You don't need 20,000
Right.
shares to make this work, and that's where it comes back. My first year
Yeah.
training, a lot of times I had to do what you guys had to do, which was buckle down the hatches, lower the share size, and basically show up every day and have a small red day, small green day for a while until the market or a stock came along that I was dialed in on. And then that's where I could hit it out of the park and increase my share size and get a big win, and then try to build on that, every, base hit after base hit after base hit. And that's kind of the danger with watching me trade now. It's like, what I tell people, I'm on chapter 40 of this thing. Like
Right.
you guys are at chapter 12 or whatever. And it's
Mm-hmm.
like, if you're trying to do, you know, everything that I'm doing, some of the stuff I do is very dangerous. Like I lost $7,000 that one day, in a blink of an eye.
Right.
And
Yeah.
and so it's not without risk. Now, yeah, I do have, I guess, the extra benefit of saying, yeah, I have, all this money, but I think it's not even that. It's just the confidence to know that if I do get knocked down, if I do go through a slow period, I know how to weather, and I know how to weather that storm. I know how to dig out of a hole. It's painful, and it usually starts with just one little brick at a time, one little, one trade at a time. Sometimes, and I told Mike this, where there were some days where I would go in, I'd take a couple trades, I would be green, and I would just shut it down because I have to break the red streak. And I would shut down within 20 minutes of trading, 15 minutes of trading. I'd shut it down. That's something
Yeah.
that's something I don't do now. And and
Mm-hmm.
I've tried to make that clear to other traders. I'm like, where I am now is like, I'm breaking rules left and right. I'm taking big size here and I'm doing this here. And in some ways it's almost a distraction, especially when you're comparing yourself. Well, it's like, oh, farmer's trading 2 hours. And it's like, yeah, but there's no volume. The market's dead. And it's like, but he's still making money. And it's like,
Yeah.
but this is
Yeah.
like chapter 40 stuff. You have to go through, the beginning chapters in which you are, and a lot of other traders are. And I think that's why I think people will want to listen to this, to where we're just getting you, we're just focused on getting your foundation solid.
Yeah.
We're not so concerned about, oh, this guy made 100,000 this year and you're up only. We don't care. You're doing something really hard, something most people fail at, and BZ and you are showing tremendous signs of success. And I'm beating into you guys. Hey, you're doing great. Just go sideways if you have to. Just keep learning, keep things going, keep your losses as tight as possible, and don't be surprised when a month or two from now you're just off on a new high. That's how it's worked for me. That's how it's worked for a lot of traders that have succeeded. So what you're going through is like, uh and I've said it 1,000 times, but
Yeah.
it's like one of those things where it's like it drags on me a little bit to see a lot of this, like, oh, this sucks, and I'm like, yeah, I know, but just trust me,
Yeah,
trust in the
I'm
process.
definitely I'm definitely to blame. I mean, I feel like, I mean, even starting my little channel that I have, like I don't even know, I'm often questioned like, well, what am I even doing? Can I even? I'm not really. I feel weird about like, should I even be in this kind of like teaching mentality? Because I'm not. I'm barely profitable, but I guess so. I often question myself with that a little bit, but I'm trying to just ignore those thoughts and just keep going forward, and um, hopefully people learn some stuff from it. But I also think about taking a break too occasionally, maybe. But yeah, but that's
Story
just
for another time.
my stuff. Yeah, sorry about
Yeah.
that.
Oh, I gotcha. Yeah. Yeah. Well, anyways, let's cut this episode here. So yeah, thank you, Blair. That I think that was a good talk. I think a lot of people will like listen, and some of this is just keeping you motivated to stay on the straight and narrow, stay with it, keep believing, and that's we're in boot camp, some of you guys, and I know it sucks, but the rewards can be really good, I guess. So, anyways, let's cut it there. Thank you, Blair.
Cool. Yeah, of course. Thank you for having the class.